Hi, mathematicians. Today you are going to need that volume 2 math book again. You're going to want your fraction strips to help you out, and you're going to need to make sure you have your additional practice book, okay? We are going to keep digging into fractions, comparing them, but instead of necessarily using the fraction strip, I'm going to show you a new strategy with the number line, which you're familiar with from our chapter before with fractions, okay? And then, of course, those tricks that I taught you about looking at the numerator and the denominator, you pick which strategy works best for you. But we will take a few minutes to watch our video on how we're going to practice with the number line to compare, okay? Here we go. And maybe not. Let's see. Let's try. All right.
In the lesson.
Let me start it over.
How can you compare fractions using the number line? Think about this question during the lesson. Talia has two different lengths of blue and red ribbon. Does she have more blue ribbon or more red ribbon?
Look at the numerators and the denominators of each fraction.
We know to do that, right?
You can compare the fractions by reasoning about their size using benchmarks or models, such as number lines. What is the same about the fractions? What is different?
All right, so we looked at that a lot yesterday, right? What do we notice is the same in our fractions, 2/3 and 1/3? You should be able to scream it so loud I can hear you. What's the same? The denominator's the same, right? So then what's different? Use your fraction terms, not the top number. What's it called? The numerator is different. And we know our tricks with the denominators being the same or the numerators being the same. Do you remember? I taught you yesterday. Okay, we love when the denominator is the same because then we just look at the numerator and the greater numerator is the greater fraction, right? Did you remember that from yesterday? High five if you did. All right, let's keep watching. Show them how smart we are.
The denominators are the same. The numerators are different. The fractions both refer to 1 yard of ribbon. This is the whole. You can use the number line to compare 1/3 and 2/3. The farther the distance of the fraction from 0 on the number line, the greater the fraction. On the number line, 2/3 is farther to the right than 1/3. Which is a correct comparison?
Okay.
Select your answer.
They always interrupt me. Let's stop and think kind of about what they said. So we, yesterday, were talking about which fractions were closer to 0 or which fractions were closer to 1. We didn't use that number line to help us, right? But here's a good visual of how 2/3 is closer to 1 whole, right? And 1/3 is closer to 0. So that means if it's closer to 0, it's the smaller fraction, right? If it's closer to 1, it's the greater fraction, right? Plus, we know our trick. The denominators are the same. We look at the numerators. We love when the denominators are the same. We don't get tricked. We just know the larger numerator is the larger fraction, right? So now I want you to stop and think about which one of these sentences makes sense, okay? So let's stop and think about this. It says 2/3 is, you know what that symbol means? Less. See how it kind of looks like an L? 2/3 is less than 1/3. Is 2/3 less than 1/3? Here's 2/3. Here's 1/3. All right, let's look at the second one. 1/3, oh, the alligator mouth is eating it. So 1/3 is greater than 2/3? Is 1/3 greater than 2/3? Think about that for a minute. Or look at our bottom one, 2/3, same symbol, greater than 1/3. Which one makes the most sense? Which one is correct? Look at your number line to help you, or think about our denominator trick. Okay? Which one did you pick? Well, I know if the denominators are the same, I look at the numerators, I pick the greater numerator because that has the greater fraction. So 2/3 is greater than 1/3. Let's see if we're right. Yes.
Since 2/3 is farther to the right than 1/3, 2/3 is greater than 1/3. What is another way to tell which fraction is greater?
Okay, we use the number line. Could we use our fraction strips? Yeah. Or the trick Mrs. Harp taught you, right? Yes, those are 3 different strategies. You pick which one you like the best. All right, let's see which one they tell us.
When two fractions have the same denominator, the fraction with the greater numerator is the greater fraction.
My trick. Shh, don't tell anybody.
Talia has more blue ribbon than red ribbon. Now you know how you can compare fractions using the number line.
All right, guys, so we are still comparing fractions. Today, we are looking at and practicing with a number line, but we know Mrs. Harp's secret trick that we can use, or we know we can use our fraction strips, whichever strategy we like the best, okay? So we want to make sure that we have our volume 2 math book. I'm going to share my screen with you. While I'm doing that, might take a minute. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Wow, you're sitting so patiently. All right, let's see, does that work? Yes, I'll make it bigger in a minute. Go ahead and turn to page 507 in your volume 2 math book. 507. Trying to make it bigger. 507, friends. Hello again. All right. By now, you should be at 507, ready to roll with me. You have your fraction strips if you need it. You have that secret Mrs. Harp fraction trick tucked in your head so that you can use which strategy you like the best when I send you off on your own, okay? All right, let's go ahead and look at question number 1. Think about what this is saying. When two fractions refer to the same whole, so that means the same number line or the same fraction strip, what do you notice when the denominators you are comparing are the same? So what's the trick? What did I tell you? If the denominators are the same, what do we notice? What do we have to do? So I'll give you an example. What if I have 3/8 and 5/8? So when we're comparing those fractions, pretend like we don't have a number line, pretend like we don't have the fraction strip, we have to use the secret strategy. Do you remember what the secret strategy is? So it says, what do you notice when the denominators you are comparing are the same? Well, what do you notice? What do you have to do? You have to look at the numerators, right? And the greater numerator is the greater fraction, right? So what do? compare the numerators and the greater numerator is the greater fraction, right? Okay, I might run out of room, but let's just write it down here so that we know. The greater numerator is the, we're gonna write it big, greater fraction. Okay, we love when the denominators are the same. That makes our life so easy. All right, now they want us to use and practice with the number line today, okay? This should be pretty easy for us because we know if the fraction's closer to 1, then it's greater, right? If the fraction's closer to 0, it's less, right? So compare fractions using, make sure we know that means what? Less than, greater than, or equal to. All right, so we've got our fractions. We've got 2/4. So on our fraction, on our number line, we're just gonna mark 2/4. And then we've got 2/3. So on our bottom one, we know it's split into 3 equal pieces. So we're going to plot 2/3. Which fraction is bigger? Which fraction is closer to 1, guys? 2/3, right? So I just circle it so my brain knows because we've got to pay attention to what the number sentence says. It's saying 2/4. It starts with 2/4. So we just said 2/3 is greater, right? So that means 2/4 is less. So we have to plug in the less than sign. 2/4 is less than 2/3. And we know the alligator mouth always eats the bigger fraction, right? Also, let's stop and look. This is the one that's a little tricky. The numerator was the same. So when we look at the denominator, our brains have to think backwards, opposite. We have to pick the smaller denominator. The smaller denominator is the greater fraction. Okay? All right, let's move on. This should be pretty simple for us. 2/6, let's find 2/6 on the number line. Plot it. 2/3. Plot it. Which one's greater? 2/6 or 2/3? Circle the greater fraction. We know it's greater when it's closer to 1. Okay? 2/3 or 2/6? Which one's closer to 1? Circle it. 2/3 again, right? So what are we going to put in? 2/6 is not greater. It's what? Less than 2/3. And our alligator mouth is eating the greater fraction. Okay, what did we notice? The numerators were the same. So we look at the denominators and we pick the smaller denominator because that's the greater fraction. And I'm sure I sound like a robot, but remember it, let it brew in your brain so you don't forget it, okay? Oh, all right. Why does this problem only have one number line? What do you notice about these fractions? Well, they can be on the same number line because what do they have the same? They have the same denominator, right? Yes, we love when it's the same denominator. All right, let's plot it. 5/8 and what? 3/8. Okay, well, which one's greater? Which one's closer to 1, guys? Circle it. 5/8. 5/8 is closer to 1 whole, right? So 5/8 is greater than 3/8, right? All right. I think you guys are becoming experts on this, okay? So I am going to go ahead and have you work on number 6, number 7, number 8, number 9, okay? And then flip it over. And let's see here. I'm going to say you can do number 11. It's got those fractions. It's a numbers or a word problem, but I think you can plug it in. All right, go ahead and do number 14 also. And then you're going to go ahead and do number 15. I'm going to help you with number 15 real quick, but I'm going to have you plot it on your own, okay? So let's go ahead and look at number 15. Daniel walked 3/4 a mile. Okay, so we're going to make this Daniel's number line. Theo walked 3/8. Use the number line to show the fraction of miles Daniel and Theo each walked. Okay, you should remember how to make a number line with our fractions. Okay, but if you don't, I'm going to help you. So we know the first one, we look at the denominator, that's how many pieces the number line has to be split up. It has to be split up into how many pieces? 4, right? Well, we don't count 0, but let's go ahead and split it up. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and then our 1 whole counts as 4, right? So when we number it, remember, we would say 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and then 1 whole is the same as what fraction? 4/4, right? Okay, so that's Daniel. So you'll have to plot 3/4 his mile in a minute. But then Theo walked 3/8. So that means we've got to split up our number line into actually how many this time? Into 8 pieces, right? So remember, we don't count 0, but we can count 1. So we have to make 1 our 8th mark, right? So let's look. 1, 2, 3. We're going to have to make them closer together because we have to do 8. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 8, right? So we know this is 1/8, 2/8. I'm going to leave you to number the rest, okay? And then answer the question. So you do not actually need your additional practice book. I changed my mind, okay? So you are working on your own on page 507. You are doing 6, 7, 8, 9. Use the strategy of the number line. Circle the greater fraction just like we did up here, okay? Or think about our numerator and denominator trick. Or have this fraction strip here to help you, okay? And then on the back, you're going to do number 11, 14, and 15, okay? Please make sure Mom and Dad check your work. No discussion posts today, but we will have a test on all of this on Friday. So if you are unsure of how to do this, make sure you ask for help. Ask Mom first, and if Mom and Dad need to reach out to me, please let me know, okay? All right, good job.